All right, welcome back. Episode 3. Today we're going to be digging into Am I a Caretaker? What is the role of a caretaker and what I can do to best support the person that I care about who is dealing with MS. So I appreciate you joining in, viewing this video, and let's start digging into these questions. All right, first question is, am I a caretaker? So when we are dealing with someone who has any kind of disease and we're there as part of their support system, I truly believe you are in a caretaker role. It's not just the individual who may be a spouse or family member to the person dealing with the disease. It is actually truly a very, very large group of people who may not even recognize that they're actually in a caretaker role. So of course, if you have a loved one, if your husband or wife or boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, so forth, is dealing with a debilitating disease like MS, of course you're probably going to be the number one caretaker in their life. I myself, again, my wife is dealing with MS, and I know truly that I'm probably her number one go-to support person, and that's just because we're with each other every day. We love each other. We're married, of course. We're supposed to be in that role, but it gets so much deeper than that. We have our close friends, our family, who are always there to support us both, who are there to help us out with any questions that we have or any kind of decisions that we need to make as far as our health care. And then there's also times when I can't be there to be a shoulder to cry on, where she needs to talk to someone else, so she has her friends and family and so forth to talk to. So outside of friends and family, I do believe there's a much larger support system or group of caretakers that may not recognize that they're actually in a caretaker role. One of the first ones I would say is work family. Basically people that you see every day, that you're around every day, who recognize your mannerisms, what you do, how you handle yourself, and may be able to see if there's a day where you're not quite yourself. We're lucky enough to have a huge support system at my wife's work, who actually were there when we first found out she had MS, was because she had an episode at work and people were there for her and did a lot of the right things to make sure that we could get her taken care of. So I would say having a close-knit group at work that understand you and know basically your day-to-day, how you are, and just can be able to tell when something may be off or something may be not right. So next I'll talk about support groups. Support groups, I do believe, are a huge part of the caretaker role. They're not only there, other people there that are dealing with MS, but there's also people there that aren't dealing with MS themselves, but are there to support someone else who is dealing with MS. So they'll have a lot of insight as to what they see that may not be recognized by someone who has MS, if that makes any sense. We hear a lot at support groups about how people feel who are in different stages of MS. So you get to take in that knowledge. So you as a caretaker going to a support group could also hear information that is going to help you be able to understand the disease a little bit more and what your loved one may go through and things that you may have to make changes to in the future, or to be able to help down the road because it's something you may have heard about at a support group. And also at a support group, you are actually able to give some insight into what you know, or some research you may have done, or like our last support group, we were actually able to talk about one of the doctors who spoke at a conference that we were able to attend that not everyone was able to be at. So you're actually not just a caretaker for your loved one, but for everybody in the support group. So you're actually able to give them some knowledge or some information that they may have not had, that's pertaining to MS or pertaining to what they may be going through. Another group of people that I would also like to mention is, or are, friends of people who are in a caretaker role. So a lot of times when you think of caretaker, you think of who's helping the person that has MS. Sometimes someone in a caretaker role needs somebody to lean on or needs somebody to talk to. So I definitely want to mention that. So friends of mine who I'm able to vent to or able to talk to, or when I need some help just to get through something I may be going through, you're all part of that caretaker role as well. it's hard to get through some days, not just as a caretaker, but you're worried about your loved one, you're worried about what they're going through. On top of that, you have your own things that you have to go through, so it can get overwhelming at times. So to be able to have somebody that you can lean on, somebody you can talk to, that's all part of that caregiver system as well, or that caretaker grouping as well. They're able to help other caretakers, and if we weren't there to help our loved one, then they'd be without. So I do want to mention that. I do feel that's an important part of that caretaker role. And now I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into what we can do as caretakers to help support the person that we love dealing with MS. So again, a question we're going to dig into right now is, what can I do to support the person that I love dealing with MS, or the person that I care about dealing with MS? So there's the normal everyday answer: to love them, to care for them, be there in case they need you to do anything, that kind of thing. That would be your typical answer, but I want to dig a little bit deeper into that question. So if you've actually done any research or looked into anything pertaining to MS and like what someone with MS deals with, one of the first things you're going to find is that depression is can be very severe, and is very common in people that are dealing with MS. So I would say the first thing that you want to really start to recognize is to see what kind of moods or how the person with MS is actually dealing with the disease themselves. It can be very difficult for them to think about how their life's going to change and how things are going to be different for them. They're going to start worrying about things that they're not going to be able to do, or things they may already notice that are starting to wear, or things that they used to be able to do with ease now becomes a little bit of a struggle. So I would say one of the biggest things is to kind of keep an eye out for that. Keep an eye out for how they're feeling, what kind of mood they're in, to see if depression is creeping in, and if that's something that you need to talk to them or their doctor about to make sure that you're on top of that. That can be very scary. It's one of those things that can creep up on you, that it can be very, very serious. So I know with that depression side of MS, what can you do as a caretaker on your end to try to make that a little bit better, on top of just not just noticing it, but what can you do to help with that? So I would say some of the things you can do are, you want to not push your significant other or the person that you love to do things that may be a little bit harder for them to do now, but also you don't want to do it to the point where you make them feel like they can't do something, I would say. I struggle with that a lot. I kind of feel like I want my wife to be able to do as much as she possibly can, and at the same time I don't want to push her too much to make it to where she goes too far and does too much, and then it wears her out or makes things worse down the road. The next thing I would say is to treat the person dealing with MS like you always have. It can be a very scary situation for them. The fact that they're not going to be able to do certain things, or the fact that things are going to change in their life, you don't want to add on to that change. I think you love on them like you always have, treat them like you always have. It's not some contagious, crazy thing where you can't treat them the way you always have, and you want their lives to be as unchanged as possible until it has to be changed. We have a great group of friends who, when we do things, we still like to go out, we still like to hang out, we like to go out and do different things, and we do modify some of the things we do. We won't do things that are super physical, we won't do things that take a lot of energy, but we still like to hang out together, we still like to do those things and be a group of people who do stuff together. Same with, you don't want to change your daily lifestyle too much. You want your loved one to be able to do as much as they possibly can until the day they can't, because that just, it helps strengthen the idea that you don't let the disease win, or you're not going to let it win, and you're just going to do as much as you possibly can to stay strong. And I think that helps give the individual dealing with MS some additional strength, knowing that you believe they can do it, they're going to believe they can do it, and just not change a whole lot until it has to be changed. Maybe I should have mentioned this first. This probably should have been one of the first things I should have talked about in this video, but very first thing you want to do is gain knowledge of the disease. You want to do as much research as you can, find out as much as you can about the disease, MS. There's a ton of stuff you can find online, on top of just drilling the doctors, drilling your neurologist, talking to the people at the infusion center. When you do meet other people that have MS, talk to them, find out what they deal with. Knowledge is power. They always say that, and I do agree that, like, if you don't know what you're dealing with, it's going to be 10 times harder, because everything's a blind side. So I would say do your research. So lastly, I'd like to say, last tip I'd like to give is to become a good listener. I didn't do well with that at first. I'd like to jump in and see, how can I help? What can I do? And always be there to, like, try to say what I think and what I want to do to help. But I think one of the biggest things I wish I would have learned right off the bat was to learn to be a great listener. Just by listening, there's a lot of things you're going to be able to find out. On a day-to-day basis, just listening to the person you love, you're going to get to know how they feel each and every day. Because one day might be a huge struggle for them. One day might be a great day for them. You're going to have a bunch of days that are in the middle, that you're going to have to listen to find out what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, to see how you're going to be able to help them. And then once you start to recognize those kind of things, you'll find a different daily routine than what you may normally do. So I would say listening, and just learning by listening is one of the biggest things you can do. So I thought listening would be my last tip, but actually my last tip would be to just continue to love and pray for the person that you care about. I believe a lot in prayer, so I do believe that, pray for them, pray for yourself, pray for the people around you, pray for the ones the ones that are there for you, and just continue to ask for all the support you can get. And that's the best way to ask for any kind of help, is through prayer. So I would do that, and just, like I said, continue to love on the person that you care about, because that's what you're there to do. Be a great caretaker. You just got to love. You just got to listen, and those would be my suggestions as to what may help you be a better caretaker. So I hope this helps, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I look forward to episode 4. And as always, if you could please kindly subscribe to the channel, like the videos, comment on the videos, share the videos. Again, I'd love to hear any suggestions on any topics you may like to talk about, things that I could look into for you, and just to be able to be a support for you and to help you. And also, I want to thank you for being a part of my caretaker system. And again, look out for episode 4. Thank you.